Yeah. So how did you get into this whole like the horror writing? And then there's also that saying of like writers write what you know, right? Like, are there elements of people or things or experiences in
Well,
some of your fiction?
um, that's kind of a psychoanalytical question, and it's hard to explain really. I always enjoyed strange things. I always enjoyed ghost stories and murder stories and monster stories and things like that. And even when I was a little boy, my father would drive me around and point out that place over there was a haunted house, and I saw a ghost up on that hill once, and that kind of thing. And he had all he had all these friends that these kind of elderly hill farmer types, and we would go on Sunday drives, and he'd stop in at their houses. We'd sit out on the piazza, as porches were called in those days, and I'd be bored silly listening to their talk until it turned to like murders. Then I'd sort of tune in, and the conversation would suddenly get more interesting. So by the time I was an adult, I had really collected a bunch of stories, all from my father. And I started reading similar stories and reading Vermont history and talking to other people with similar inclinations, like Jason, and just pulling together a bunch of stories, which eventually appeared in this book called Green Mountain Ghosts, Ghouls, and Unsolved Mysteries. The maybe if I don't do I have one of those? Yes, that's it.
Oh,
yes.
nice.
Now the difference here between a big publisher and a small publisher was with the big publishers didn't care what they put on the cover of the book. They would just put whatever they wanted on, like a clown. But the small publisher was very considerate and polite about what they put on the cover. And I remember when they asked me about this cover, they said, "Well, would you mind if we put a gravestone on the cover of your book?" And I said, "No, I wouldn't mind. That's fine." And then they said, "Well, would you mind if we put your name on the gravestone?" And I said, "Sure, yeah, I might as well start getting used to it." But that was kind of the difference between a big publisher and a small publisher. And I was much more comfortable with a small publisher. That's all.
Oh, that's great. Yeah,
The whole story.
yeah. Keeping it small is definitely more relaxing. Making films, I've never dealt with any, big film producer or anything as far as like my own movies, but doing it yourself is so much more, I don't know, rewarding.
Yeah.
And
You get creative control, right?
yeah,
But you have to come up with your own definition of what's successful. Probably with a movie company or a big publisher, that's only measured by sales and bottom line.
Mhm.
But if you're making your own films, or if I'm writing and publishing my own books, money is no longer the only measure of success, I think.
yeah, it would be nice, but
Yeah.